Hey everybody! I hope everybody is there. I did have a bit of a glitch. Let me know who is there and whether or not you're seeing this. I'd set up the stream, and then for whatever reason, when I hit start, it didn't start. It said I didn't have the stream set up. So let me know in the comments. Is anybody out there? Am I actually streaming? I don't know. I don't think I am. Or at least I am, but I don't think I am on the place where I thought I was going to be. So I'm just going to start this again. Hopefully it works. It works for a few weeks and then it stops working for whatever reason. And, yeah, I don't know. Let's go here. All right, so I'm on. Okay, so it looks like everything is working. Hopefully everybody's on. Yeah. All right. So hello, Nelson, Tracy, and Lisa, and Clifford. Hopefully anybody who was on the stream that I thought I'd set up has switched over to this one. But yeah, feel kind of embarrassed about that because every time I do something like this, it ends up, when I screw up, I just hate that. I think it was actually OBS this time. I'm gonna blame it on OBS. So, hope everybody is doing fine tonight. I actually am going to try and monitor some of the things that I play here tonight, and hopefully there's no echo. So if anybody can let me know how the sound is coming through, whether there is an echo or a repeat, that would be great. Looks like I hope I'm not broadcast putting up the same message 3 times in a row here. I don't know. Anyway, I wanted to start off by talking about USAID, which is the United States Agency for International Development. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this is because it does have a parallel to something that's happening in Canada. So if you've been following at all the happenings south of the border, Elon Musk is taking a jackhammer to a lot of, waste in the U.S. federal government. And one of the agencies that he's gone after first is USAID, because it's spending a lot of money, wasting a lot of money overseas for a lot of the things that it seems our global affairs are wasting money on. But apparently, and I have not been to the website yet to check for myself, but if you follow Moose on the Loose, he has this segment at the end of a lot of his videos where he goes over all of the waste spending in Canada when we're throwing money away on international projects that have no real use for Canada, and a lot of them have these dumb little explanations because they have to like in some far off African country where they want to promote gender equality and yada yada yada. Well, that portion of, I think it's Global Affairs, but it could be another website, but that portion of the Canadian government website has been taken off or been deleted. So yeah, I don't know what's going on there, but it just seems a little strange, doesn't it? So USAID is getting all this attention, and people are some people are happy and a lot of people are not happy that Elon Musk is pretty much taking a jackhammer to it and clearing it out of all the waste. And then our global affairs, which is wasting all this other money, that has all of a sudden been wiped off of the website. So they're still paying out the money. They're still doing all this crap. They're still sending money to far off places for gender equality and this, that, and the other thing. Instead of spending money at home on Canadians, but yet they've taken it off the air, so we don't know about it. Isn't that great? It's just another, in my opinion, just another way that the Liberal government is hiding things from Canadians, and another example of, in my opinion, of their corruption. So, you can't really expect anything more from the Liberals. So, going on to the next topic, that was a pretty fast one, but going on to the next topic, I want to talk about how stupid some of the people or some of our premier's response to the Trump tariff threats were. Now, of course, we all know the tariffs have been put on hold for at least 30 days. So by my calculation, they should come into effect on March the 5th unless something is done, unless Trudeau can actually prove that he's carrying through with his plans, which, he's let us down before, and he says a lot of things and never follows through. So I don't know, maybe he will follow through on this and maybe he won't. But I think if you're in BC, you've probably seen this, but David Eby had a really stupid response to this, and I just want to play that now, and then we can talk about it.
Of the historic bond between our countries. It is a declaration of economic war against a trusted ally and friend. I understand President Trump is concerned about fentanyl in the United States. Well, we're concerned about fentanyl too.
You know what, David Eby, I think that your actions speak louder than your words. I don't think you care about British Columbians with all of your safe injection sites and all of your safe supply. Yeah, your words ring hollow here. So don't tell us that you are concerned about fentanyl when you're so corrupted and you're so in bed with the Chinese who are importing this dangerous drug, and you're not supporting law enforcement to the extent you should to interdict this drug. No, David Eby, I think you're full of it.
For our first of many steps, effective today, I have directed BC liquor sales to immediately stop buying American liquor from red states.
So now he's kind of interfering in U.S. politics by saying, hey, it's the red states that are the problem. They voted for Donald Trump, so we're going to punish them. We're not going to punish the blue states because we love those socialists. No, we're going to punish the conservatives, the people who actually have a brain in their head and actually have, common sense, who do the right thing instead of the thing that gets them more social credit. Oh, God, I can't believe this guy. And, he's punishing Canadians as well who prefer, the bourbon from the red states or whatever. And I realize this is all, gone by the wayside now, but just him even going down this road is the stupidest thing that I've ever heard of. But, we've got this idiot for a premier who probably, didn't even win the election. I mean, it's still kind of up in the air, but, we'll talk about that later.
Liquor store employees will be removing the most popular of these brands from government store shelves.
So even though we've paid for it, we're not going to sell it. We're just going to take the loss. Well, that's really stupid.
I've directed government and our crown corporations like BC Hydro, ICBC, and health authorities to immediately stop buying American goods and services and buy Canadian.
Yeah, so what a joke that is. So he, I don't understand these politicians and what they think. it's almost like well, I mean, do they even think? I don't think they actually do. But he actually showed his colors there. He is very biased. He doesn't like the Conservatives, and obviously he doesn't like the red states. But what kind of premier do we have who will target one state because it's conservative and not not another state because it's blue? Because of course we know he loves the socialists, and in his comments about fentanyl, let me know in the chat. Do you actually believe that he cares? I don't, because he legalized hard drugs in BC for quite some time, and and he's given drugs to people. I think that actually he should be charged and with drug trafficking, which would be funny because if Pierre gets in, that would be a life sentence, which I think would be good for people like him. So, but what I find is there's still a lot of, like, I live in a very socialist area. I live in, I would even call it kind of a communist area. I was at the dairy today getting some milk, and this is in North Cowichan, and the people behind me started talking and trashing, John Rustad, and also Donald Trump, and started praising Bonnie, what's her face, Bonnie Henry. And I got to thinking, these people are so brainwashed. Like they were, really trashing Trump and saying that he has dementia or something like that. That's clearly not the case. Now, not that I like Trump. I actually think he's, I don't know how to put this, because I think he's a good president. I think he worked well in his first term, and I think he's probably going to do well for America. I don't like the way he deals with people, and I don't like the way he, talks about people, because I think that's just a lot of, I think he invites criticism for that, and I don't think it really helps his case or the case of Republicans to be that confrontational. Now, I do like him and the way he operates, though, the way he gets things done. He's the hardest working president that we've seen in a while. I don't think that you've seen a president get as much done in his first week in possibly 100 days. And that's how they measure the first 100 days. That's one of their measurements. What did they do in the first 100 days in office? Well, he's done more in the first week than most presidents do in the first 100 days. So I like him in that sense. And I do find him kind of funny. I think that but I don't know that that's all that helpful, especially when he goes and, trolls Canada. Although I think it's funny, a lot of Canadians don't think it's funny. Also, Liberals definitely don't think it's funny. And, there you have it. So, one of the things that about Trump is what he actually does, what he says he'll do. So, and people don't like that. People don't like that at all. But I'm going to play a video here. It's kind of a long one. So I'll, as I'm playing it, I'll be monitoring it, but I'm also just going to go back and look at some of the chat. The reason why this is a long video is it's a video that Jordan Peterson put out, and he's reading from his book. And many of you have probably seen this already. I'm not obviously going to play the whole 25 minutes. That would be insane. But I think it's good to see a little bit of a perspective there, because I want to talk afterwards about how East and West interact with each other, and how Canadians maybe see how we treat the U.S. Kind of poorly in a lot of ways. And no, I'm not an American, but I do think that sometimes there's this thing with Canadians of a certain generation. My generation, I'm a boomer, last of the boomers, 64. But my father, who was a silent generation, I think that's what they call him, and then I think that we've been brought up with this propaganda in our school systems where we think we're so much better. And I think there's some good things that we have. I mean, we seem to have better education, but does it go anything beyond that? So anyway, I'm going to play this Jordan interview, and then and while I'm doing it, I'm going to go back and respond to some of the texts or the chat.
The current plight of Alberta, and with it Saskatchewan and even BC, although the latter is still too blind and holier than thou socialist to note the true danger that confronts it.
So Peterson's making the point here that BC is kind of blind to the dangers that we face because of our socialist government and our socialist leanings. In particular, I would even go so far as to call it communist leanings in the areas where I live. So I live in the kind of South Mid-Island area in and around Duncan, and I grew up in the Lower Mainland, so not much difference there. A little bit better, maybe more liberal than NDP, but he's very correct in the sense that so many people, and I think it's I think it might be because of internal migration within Canada, but so many people have come to this area because and who have really socialist leanings. Obviously there were people who grew up here and who've been here all their lives. But when you think of, the 70s and how people really distrusted Pierre Elliott Trudeau and how he even flipped British Columbians off from the back of a train, and how things have really changed since then. Where I grew up in Delta, it was primarily a conservative area, and in the last few elections, it's gone liberal, and and we seem to be, a lot of people seem to be totally, oblivious to the dangers. As a matter of fact, I'll talk about that a little later in the live stream here.
The most American of all Canadian provinces by widespread reputation and self-regard, Alberta is also the polity that Eastern Canada, particularly Quebec, relies on to survive while it pursues its disdainful socialist green agenda. This is the Quebec that is whined and manipulated so effectively for so many decades that its minority bilingual citizenry utterly dominates not only the perennially ruling Liberal Party, but the federal bureaucracy.
Growing up in Western Canada, we kind of had this thought back in the 70s of how we were an afterthought. We weren't the focus of anything Canadian. We were Western Canadian. Now, in my case, we were British Columbians. I did live in Alberta prior to living in British Columbia as a child, and that was also a thought. And we visited the farm in Saskatchewan, my uncle's farm in Saskatchewan, quite a bit, where my father grew up. And there was always this kind of this undertone of us and them, like Western Canada versus Eastern Canada, because we always had a thought that we were being taken advantage of and that we didn't matter in the whole greater scheme of things. All of the elections that we voted in were always decided in Ontario before the polls closed in Ontario. So the two provinces that really mattered for elections were always Quebec and Ontario. So yeah, there was always this kind of us and them attitude. And the fact that Alberta and even Saskatchewan and even BC support Eastern Canada so much, this is historical. This goes back to the Crow rate. I'm not even sure if the Crow rate still exists, but if you don't know what the Crow rate is, then you're probably very young. But look it up. Basically, goods come west a lot cheaper than you can ship east, and it was designed to support Ontario and Quebec. So yeah, we support them with our energy and our money, and we don't really get a lot of benefit out of it.
That constitutes only two such unjust and unproductive advantages among many, by the way, and all that despite the Francophony's strong and lasting separatist leanings. This is the same Eastern Canada and Quebec that regards itself as entitled not only to the so-called transfer payments characterizing the Canadian social contract, much to the disadvantage of the resource-rich West, but that simultaneously assumes and trumpets a moral superiority to the people who earn that transferred money in a manner deeply reminiscent of that more generally assumed by Canadians with respect to Americans.
Yeah, this false sense of moral superiority, which we are the victims of out west here, or at least we feel that way. We feel that we're taken advantage of. We have the energy, we produce the energy, and we produce the money, therefore, for the country. And then we give all this money to the East, and for whatever reason, they still hate us, and they still hate our industries and our energy sector. And they just seem like they have this moral superiority over us. And in a certain way, I think that there's also a lot of Canadians out here who have a sense of moral superiority when it comes to the U.S., which I don't get. I've always been very open-minded and very pro-American as far as, I like them. I don't have a problem with them. They're pretty much just the same as us. But there are so many people, primarily from I would say from the silent generation and the boomers. I'm a boomer, who have been brought up to think that we're superior for some reason, and it's all false. It's all BS, but it's propaganda, and it's worked, I think, to keep Canada together. And I think it's part of socialism, really, to build that us against the world attitude, or us against the American attitude. I think it's actually kind of a little bit of a little brother syndrome, while we try to outdo the big brother. But that's I'm not sure if that's a really good way of putting it.
The consequence? No business case for the trade deals or infrastructure projects necessary to supply a self-admittedly desperate Europe and Japan with cheap and reliable Alberta energy. No new, plentiful, and gratefully received pipelines running west to east in Canada. Abject economic dependence, in consequence, for Albertans and Canada itself, as we're now finding out, on the purchasing decisions of the mad MAGA Yanks to the south. And now, that same Alberta is being called upon to sacrifice its artificially and morally limited economy to fight off the looming tariffs of Donald J. Trump.
Yeah, so just one more comment here before we jump ahead to another section that I thought was very interesting, and that is that they've set us up to fail in the West here. So the East has set the West up to fail because they want all of the advantages. And so we don't have the East-West pipeline. We have very limited ways of getting our oil even to the West Coast, although we do have the Trans Mountain Pipeline now, but it's not running. I don't think we have full capacity. I mean, that might have full capacity, but we don't have a system that really reaches its potential for the West. So I think that is a huge problem. They set us up to fail. because they're setting themselves up to win. So it's a one-sided kind of deal. So I want to actually jump ahead in this video of Jordan Peterson's to a talk of what he thinks that Danielle Smith should do as far as speaking with Donald Trump.
Trump has offered Canada status as the 51st state. If we had a well-constituted country, this would have never happened, or the suggestion would have been laughable. I see damn few people laughing, however, and more's the pity. A strong case can be made that such subordinate status would not at all be a good deal for the Great White North as a whole. For Alberta, however, and perhaps for the West as such, the situation is not so clear. Here's what I might do, given that, if I were in Premier Danielle Smith's shoes, or at least what I might threaten to do, taking a page from Trump's Art of the Deal book, because it's high time for the Albertans to play hardball. I might travel, say, to Mar-a-Lago, where I did, in fact, recently encounter that premier. I might have, a forthright, even blunt chat with Donald J., where I might say to him something like the following. Mr. President, my fellow Canadians have for decades compelled us to climb into bed with an 800-pound gorilla. That would be you, Mr. Trump. Now you've decided to consummate the deal, so to speak.
In other words, we're getting screwed.
And we've given you the upper hand on a silver platter, to mix metaphors terribly. While you're doing so, Canada is unlikely to become the 51st state, however. Not even Alberta. As you may well know, sir. After all, you'd have to offer us something better than what has been put forward by our fellow Canadians. That would be the continued privilege and expense of subsidizing Quebec, half of whose citizens consistently clamor to secede from the country, while we impoverish ourselves for their benefit. The constant imposition of serious practical impediments from the federal and other provincial governments, hint, hint, British Columbia, to the international business deals and pipelines that would help Alberta bring its resources to market. Continual insult on top of such injury in the form of unbearable and naive moralizing about their superiority in conviction with regard to the sustainability of the planet. And to top it all off, the accusation that I, Danielle Smith, am not patriotic enough to start a trade war with my strange bedfellow in the name of a country whose very leaders proclaim both identitylessness and a multiculturalism that none of my citizens want.
Why fight for a country or promote a country that doesn't want its citizens, that thinks it's a post-national state that has all of these, far leftist ideas? So, Trudeau doesn't even think we're a country. And we have all these multicultural ideas. And this started with his father and multiculturalism. So his father didn't think that Canada had a core identity. That's the start of it. And that's why we're in the state that we are now. It's not just young Trudeau, it's old Trudeau as well.
And Trump might well say, or perhaps is even saying right now, I think I could top that offer, Ms. Premier. Fine as it is. I could offer Albertans the American dollar, full access to our markets for their resources at full international price, lower costs on almost all manufactured goods and on food, lower taxes, both corporate and personal, membership in a country that prides itself on being a country and that does not plan to dissolve itself into an unstable multicultural mishmash, genuine admiration for your economic and industrial endeavors, along with a can-do, visionary, and deeply entrepreneurial culture, immediate, reliable, and guaranteed access to ports and pipelines, and full military defense. And if that's not enough, dear lady, no transfer payments, and the additional psychological advantage for Albertans in foregoing the perpetual and bullying Eastern Canadian attitude of grievance and moral superiority, emanating in particular from the Quebec give us what we want forever or we'll leave, who also shamelessly disdains your dirty fossil fuel, such that they made the fracking Alberta's economy depends on literally illegal in their jurisdiction, just to make a point, while simultaneously accepting, and not with good grace, the filthy money so generated. What do you think would happen, O Canada, if those were the two choices put forth on a ballot?
Yeah, so that was Dr. Peterson, and he does have a way of speaking that is a little bit. Well, I mean, obviously he's an academic of high learning, and he speaks like that. That was from a book, so he's quoting a book. He's not speaking off the top of his head there. His own book he's talking from. So, he makes a lot of really good points there. So how the East treats the West in Canada. Now, I don't want to get into this, us against you thing. We have that in Canada, but the thing is, I was born in the East. I grew up in the West. As an infant, I think we moved to Regina for a little while. My dad was in the RCMP, and then moved to Edmonton, and then finally out here in 1970. I think it was 72. It might have been, around 72. So I was like 8 years old when we came to the Lower Mainland. So I guess not out here, but close enough to here, the Lower Mainland where I grew up. And of course, I was in the RCMP as well. So I spent a lot of time in Alberta in the RCMP, several, over a decade and a half at least. And then if you add on the other years when I was a kid, it's close to 20 years I spent in Alberta altogether. So I do have a little bit of an attachment to the province. As a matter of fact, that was the province I chose out of Depot to go to. And I think though that one of the odd things that I get, and let's talk about this. I do notice a distinct difference when I'm talking with newcomers to the province, who've come from back east, and they just seem, a little bit, they have a little different outlook on things. They're more likely to vote Liberal. Nowadays, though, there's a lot of Liberals out here, and they just don't really. I used to think this back in the 70s, that they must be getting different news than we did, because they kept on voting in the first Trudeau. And I think up until the last election, it almost felt the same, because they voted in Justina. Yeah, I called them Justina. Because it just doesn't feel like they're on the same wavelength that we're on out here in a lot of ways. And then the West just changed. The West kind of became similar, or at least the coast, the Vancouver, the Lower Mainland, and then this part of the island, they became very similar. So, and I don't know when that happened. I think the island, kind of this part of the island, was always a bit more left-leaning, but the Lower Mainland definitely I've seen a strong shift to the left in my lifetime, which I'm not really happy about. But and I don't want to get into this they're like this and we're like that kind of argument. I have nothing against the East, but from an institutional side of it, we're treated very poorly out West. And I don't know, and individually, the individual people, I find actually the West is, the East, they have a lot of really nice people out there. Some of my best friends are from the East Coast. or have been in the past. And then, but the institutionalized and the way they think, because some of my my relatives on the East Coast are so anti-Trump. They have definitely Trump derangement syndrome. And you see some of the things they post on Facebook and whatnot. But getting back to the Jordan Peterson video, and what do you think about, maybe, is it time for a referendum? I actually have a link in the description of this video to a petition I just started on change.org. And basically the petition is to the President of the United States. I'm not sure how I'm going to get it to him, but I'm sure that there's a way. I'll find out after I get enough signatures, if I get enough signatures. But basically asking him, because he's the one trolling us, saying, hey, you know what? Well, you should probably fund a referendum out here and see how it goes. Maybe, but I don't think that it's wise to go the 51st state, all of Canada. I think that's a really bad idea. And I've said this before, but I think that a referendum for Alberta to start with, and then Saskatchewan, and then BC, I think might just do the trick. Now, I still don't think Alberta would vote for it. I don't know that they would get 51% of the vote, but you never know. I mean, like, if a referendum was held and people put the money into it, and people put the the effort into advertising for that, it might just work. But anyways, and you know what? And even people who don't want to merge with the United States, they should be they should be supporting a referendum as well, because they get a chance to get their views out there in the advertisements leading up to the referendum vote, and they can make their case for not going to the States. And then they can say afterwards, if they're successful, hey, we called your bluff, you lost, quit trolling us or whatever. But but I think you all know that I'm actually for the idea of joining the United States. And I do think, just like Mike has just put down on in the chat, I think that every province should have the referendum separately. I don't think that they should that there should be a countrywide move. But I think that that would be a good thing for the country, even if it's just to be able to say, hey, we took the vote and everybody wants to stay in Canada. But when you look at how much we've been taken advantage of out west, I think that there could be a very strong move for supporting a referendum and supporting, a move. So, I mean, that's kind of my, my belief. And again, I put a link in the description to a petition that I think would be, I'd like you all to go to it and sign it, and then we can see if we can get it sent off to the president, and maybe, I don't know, maybe he'll listen to us. You never know. It'd have to be a lot of votes, especially since their petitions probably get 10 times the votes because they have 10 times the population. Which brings up another issue. Would the U.S. even want us? I don't think that they'd want us if it included all of Canada right now, because the central portion of Canada, Ontario and Quebec, not that I have anything against the people there, but they're very liberal for the most part. Ontario now is probably going to be voting mainly conservative, but then you have Quebec. I mean, you got Quebec and the separatists. I'm not even sure how left the PQ is out there. But I don't think they're as conservative as I would like them to be. So there you go. Yeah, it just seems to me like, it has to start somewhere, and a petition to hold a referendum, I think is probably a good way to go. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about is how we're treated out west, or how we feel that we're treated, how we perceive how we're treated, even if it's not even if it's not exactly the way people feel about us out east, is that we have is we're kind of treated as second class, but we also kind of portray that towards the Americans, that I just don't get it, because we seem to think, as Canadians, we seem to think of the United States as not being up to snuff. They don't have the same education or whatever. And I just think that's a really, really bad attitude to have, because, it's a little bit, it's almost it's a kind of a hatred thing that has been bred into us from our days in school, and it's all propaganda. It's all bullshit. Sorry, it's all BS. Where you hear that we're so much better than the States and that they have so many problems. Well, right now, our crime rate is actually worse than the U.S. I read some studies, some victimology studies. I have a degree in criminology, so this kind of stuff interests me. But I read some victimology studies way back in the day, and in every category that they looked at 4 categories. Canada was worse than the United States. Car theft, break and enter, assaults, and robberies. And those 4 categories, as far as victimology studies go, Canada was worse to the States. And now recently it's come to light that the violent crime rate in Canada is 16% higher than that in the United States. So what do we have to be so proud about here? What about our health care? A lot of people think that health care is free. It's not free. We're paying for it. It comes out of our paychecks. It goes straight to the government. And then where it gets wasted. And we have, I don't have a family doctor in Duncan. I do telephone consultations if I need a prescription refilled with my old doctor in Chilliwack. I know, which was, I haven't been in Chilliwack for 10 years, but I still have a doctor there. And when I got my knee replaced, I actually went out to Chilliwack to have him do the follow-up. That's where my doctor is, and I like him. So you put your name on a list, and I saw a video where one guy was standing in line with a whole bunch of other people to try to get in to see a new doctor in town. A new doctor just set up shop, and the line was like crazy long. And he said he'd been on the list, because you got to put your name on a list now to get a doctor. He said his name was on the list for 10 years. And then what if you get a doctor and you don't like them? They're not really, you're not suited with them, or, there's something about them that you don't really like. It's just, I had one doctor once. She was from England, and it was like you had to interview with her. So she was looking at you like you were an employee or something. And I didn't like her attitude at all. So I didn't actually she accepted me, but I didn't actually wanted to go see her. But that was years ago as well. So this has been going on for years. So our medical system isn't great, and you compare that to how we look at the U.S. medical system, and we think that it's so bad there, and that people get bankrupt all the time, and I'm sure that happens. but I don't think it's as bad as what people make it out to be, because a lot of people in their employer, through their employer, they have medical coverage, and those that don't, if they go to the county hospital, they can get looked at. So I think that it's I don't think it's as bad as what it is. And if it was as bad, then why is it that British Columbia is sending patients down to Bellingham, Washington, and Seattle to get treatment because they can't get it here? Matter of fact, my dad, who strangely enough is kind of one of those anti-American people, which I don't really get, because he's married to an American right now. After my mom died, he married, she's actually from Mexico originally, but she's an American from California. So they sent him, he's going through some health issues right now, which are pretty serious. And they've sent him down to Bellingham. I think it was Bellingham, it could even be Seattle, to get work done. And you think about this, Bellingham, Washington is not that big a place. It's a city, yes, but it's not like, we obviously have bigger cities in the lower mainland, a number of bigger cities in the lower mainland. You should be able to get stuff done there, but you can't. So our health system is not what everybody makes it out to be. And as far as saying it is, free, it's not free. We're paying for it. And then you have this other, like JFL was just saying, Johnny L was just saying, it costs $20,000 to $50,000 in some cases to get your knee replaced in the States. Well, it costs that much in Canada. It's just that it's coming out of our insurance, and a lot of times the doctors aren't getting paid what they're worth, and sometimes the job isn't all that great either. Because I tell you what, I have had, I still don't have complete full range of motion, and it's been 2 years since I've had my knee replaced. So, it's, I'm glad I got it done. It's better than what it was, but, it's like you got to wait for years, and who knows what's happened in those years. In the meantime, how much your knee has deteriorated since then. So I think that there's a lot to be said for getting in and getting her done, and then being able to recover properly because it was done, in a timely manner. So I don't think that that we have anything we have as much to brag about as we do. So when we have all these crazy things that are happening. So the last thing I kind of wanted to talk about tonight was Mark Carney, and unfortunately I don't have this clip, but it was Liz Truss, I think that's what her name is. She's a prime minister. She had been the prime minister of Great Britain for a short period of time, and then she was ousted by her party, I think it was. I don't think she was ousted in a general election. I think it was by her party, but it was all political. And apparently she was a lot more popular than what I originally thought. But anyway, she's warning us about Mark Carney, and it is really he's a scary dude, and I'm actually kind of wondering, the Epstein list is coming out, or the Epstein list, and he's been seen with in photographs with some of the people associated to Jeffrey Epstein. So I'm wondering if Mark Carney's name will be on that list. I want to see that because it would be very interesting, because I don't trust him. He just, he's been the author of all of these really terrible ideas in Great Britain and in Canada. And I think he's a reason why, part of the reason why, we've gone down the road of having these terrible decisions, overspending. He overspent in Great Britain. I don't know, I can't really remember what his track record was with the Bank of Canada, but I'm sure it wasn't great. And he's seen as a globalist, as one of the elites from the WEF, which I am very, very against. In fact, I'm against a lot of things. The UN, I think it's become something that is not supposed to be as well. I'm not for any of these super globalist organizations, beyond government, because basically it adds another level of government. So, and I know it seems kind of, it seems kind of contradictory when I say that I think that it would be good for our provinces to become states, but it's not really, because the states have a lot more power in the United States. The federal government is there to support the states or to do things that the states can't do. And whatever's not in the Constitution falls in the purview of the states. So I think that's a lot better, because the states' rights can get protected that way. Whereas we have our government interfering in provincial matters all the time. And especially when it comes to all these transfer payments. Alberta basically supports Eastern Canada and Quebec, and then gets treated like crap by the politicians in Quebec. I'm not saying the general public are like that. I'm not saying the people are like that, but definitely the establishment is like that. So when you're a state, you don't really have to put up with that. Alberta would be a super rich state, and I think British Columbia would as well. But I'm not sure British Columbia should stay one province either. To be honest with you, I think there's a super disconnect between even people in the valley, in the eastern Fraser Valley, compared to people in the Lower Mainland, with how they think about liberals and conservatives. So I'm not sure that it should be that it even should stay one province. And really a lot of the money, a lot of the resource money that's in the interior. And do we even get anything? Do they even get enough for it? Unfortunately, I live in the communist part of British Columbia. So there's that. So anyways, that's kind of my rants. I'm just going to maybe glance back at some of the comments here. I think I've actually kind of been reading them as I go along. I've set it up now so that they don't disappear. I'm sure I think I'm actually caught up on everything. Yeah. Mike was saying a couple minutes ago that the Prime Minister is going to host a Canada-U.S. Economic Summit. Well, yeah. Anything he hosts is just a joke. So, okay, whatever. Yeah. Norm was talking about Carney and Epstein. Yeah, I wonder. I really wonder about that. Yeah. Well, anyways, I think I'm pretty much caught up. Again, like if you think that a referendum would be a good idea, sign the petition, go down into the show notes, and follow that, sign the petition, share it with as many people as you can, get the word out there so that we can maybe get, a lot of interest rolling on that, and we can get people to sign on to it, because this is how I think it'll go if it goes, if it happens. If the only way that it'll happen, that Canada merges with the United States, is if Alberta goes first. Alberta and Quebec, but Quebec won't become a state. They're going to be on their own. Or they could become an autonomous territory like Puerto Rico. But putting that aside, if Alberta were to vote to become the 51st state, well, then the rest of Canada just falls like dominoes, because, I think Saskatchewan will want to get in on that deal, and they'll go soon after Alberta. BC will hold out for a little while, too long, I think, but they'll eventually fold to the pressure as well, because they're isolated out here, and they'll see how good that Alberta has it, and that's what will set things in motion. And then Eastern Canada and Quebec, being basically supported by Alberta, would eventually come to join the U.S. as well. At least Eastern Canada. I can actually see the Quebec and Ontario staying, or Ontario staying Canada and Quebec being its own countries, and that wouldn't hurt my feelings either. So David said he can't see the petition in the description. It's there underneath. It's just on top of all of my social media links. So I'll go back and make sure that it is there. But it should be just on top of all of my social media links. So that's about it. Looks like it was shorter than I expected this week. But thanks everyone for joining in. I think I probably missed a few of you for saying hi too, but I caught most of you. So so next week I'll have a live stream next week, but on the 20th. I think it's the 20th. That's my wife's birthday. I'm going to be out of town. We're going to be doing something for her birthday. So there'll be only 3 live streams this month, this week, next week, and then the week after the 20th. So y'all have a great rest of your week. Hopefully it's not too cold where you are. It's not really cold here, but it was really snowy. So I did do a lot of snow shoveling the other day, and which you don't get too much you don't do too much in the on the West Coast here, but after about 2 hours into it, I thought, maybe I'll I'm so old, maybe I'll buy a snowblower, but no, I can't do that. Anyway, you guys have a great day, great rest of your week. Maybe sit down and make sure you watch the Super Bowl this weekend. Who are you guys rooting for? None of my teams are in the Super Bowl, so I think I got to go with Kansas City, because they're the team that's furthest west. I don't know, but who are you guys rooting for in the Super Bowl? That would be I'm going to be sitting that's what I'm going to be doing this Sunday, come Sunday, and seeing how that works out. So one of the times that I'll be sitting around with a glass of bourbon and a box of wings or something like that. Anyway, we'll talk to you later. We'll see you next time, and take care of yourself.
You've been watching the Northwest Cavalryman Show. Thank you for tuning in this evening. I hope you've enjoyed the content. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and share with your friends and on social media. May God bless you. And if you're a liberal crybaby, bless your heart. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next Thursday.